Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is the Pastor Scott Show. I'm Pastor Scott. I'm here every day with you from 3 to 5. Great to be with you today, this fine Wednesday. Go to PastorScottShow.com to connect with us online. Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram is our social media. It's all at Pastor Scott Show, at Pastor Scott Show. We talk about issues of the day from a Christian perspective. The phone number is 888-528-2557. Clip number one.
And the Supreme Court is temporarily blocking a California policy that stopped parents from being told if their children are changing their gender expression or pronouns at school. The Supreme Court granted an emergency appeal saying, quote, these policies likely violate parents' rights to direct the upbringing and education of their children.
The Supreme Court put an injunction out. We talked about this briefly yesterday, but I want to get more into it today because it's important in the trajectory of, I think, where things are going, even in our great state of California.
I take offense at our policies and strategies.
And so does the Supreme Court, I think, in a great many ways. With me to talk more about this is David Schmus. He's the Executive Director for Christian Educators, an organization here for Christian public school teachers right here in California and across the nation. And we'll tell you more about that in a little bit. David, welcome back to the Pastor Scott Show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Scott.
Great to have you. So, David, part of a theme we're going to talk about a little bit throughout the show today is the ability to predict the future. And you wrote an article a couple of weeks ago, and a whole bunch of stuff that you suggested was about to happen just did happen. A whole lot of topics. And I want to talk about that because I think they're important for everybody to know. So let's begin with what the Supreme Court decided and didn't decide related to parental notification when it comes to your kid deciding to have gender issues or pronouns or those kinds of things.
Yeah, so the Supreme Court ruled in a case called Mirabelli. That was actually out of the San Diego area where two teachers stood up and they said, hey, we don't want to be forced to hide gender transition information from parents. And of course, this has been, was the law and then the policy of California schools for the last several years that if a kid wants to change genders, then the school is obligated to hide that information from parents, which is ridiculous, as the Supreme Court just indicated.
And it's proactively hide it. So it isn't just right. You don't bring it up. It's that you have to lie about it.
Right. And these teachers were like, I can't do this. And so they filed a lawsuit, and they got a great ruling at the district court from Judge Benitez that happened in December that basically put a statewide injunction against all schools in the state that they can no longer hide this information from parents. Well, unfortunately, though, the Ninth Circuit almost immediately stayed that ruling, and so it put those policies back in place. Well, the Supreme Court just on Monday night said, no, parents have a historic right to direct the upbringing of their children, and this is a direct violation of that right. Now, we need to understand that this is simply a ruling on an early motion or injunction. It's not the final verdict in the case. But it did indicate that the Supreme Court ruling said that they're likely to lose on this one. And so it was a great foreshadowing of what the final result is going to be, and really puts on notice, there's over 1,000 school districts in this nation that have these kinds of policies. And those school districts just got put on notice that they can expect lawsuits from parents if they don't quickly amend and cease and desist in terms of carrying out those policies.
And it's important that people hear that it's 1,000 different school districts across the country, because I hear it a lot less than I used to, but I still hear, well, it's not my school district. No, it is. It's in your school district. It's everywhere, even red state, blue state, particularly in cities in particular. You mentioned that teachers filed this lawsuit, but how does this affect teachers? Because I can't imagine as a teacher being instructed to lie to parents who have serious questions about how their kid is doing. That must affect teachers.
Yeah, well, it's sort of a win and a wait for teachers, if you will. The win is that if they have a student who wants to gender transition, they no longer have to keep that information secret from the parents. So that is certainly a win for those teachers. The wait is currently, at least in states like California, if the parents and the student want to do the gender transition, then currently teachers are still obligated to go along with the pronouns and the names and the whole 9 yards. This Mirabelli case could result in teachers being freed from that, having a religious objection, and asking for religious accommodations, that kind of thing. But that remains to be seen. But that's certainly something we can be praying for.
You're listening to the Pastor Scott Show. My guest is David Schmus. He's the executive director for Christian Educators. You can learn more at christianeducators.org, and we'll tell you about that in a couple of moments here. When we talk about this with teachers, there have been teachers who have found themselves in trouble because they have refused to comply. There's been some good results for a couple of people recently, even since your article predicted that. Tell us about those.
Yeah, so I wrote an article just last week called The Transgender Tipping Point that talked about the jury verdict for a detransitioner named Fox Varian who won $2 million because her therapist and her plastic surgeon did not do their due diligence and basically rushed her into transition. And that led to the American Medical Association and the American Society of Plastic Surgeons abruptly, to protect their practitioners, most likely from lawsuits, abruptly changing course and saying, well, maybe the evidence doesn't quite support sterilizing and mutilating children, as if they need.
And I think what they heard, I think they heard from their lawyers that says there's no way we're going to stand in front of a jury and defend this.
That's exactly right.
We had Chloe Cole on the show yesterday, and her case goes to trial here in about a year.
Yes.
And there are many who are.
Yeah, there's about 30 cases out there in the pipeline of medical malpractice cases. So this is going to be a flood, which is exciting to see because I think these doctors should be both bankrupt and possibly in prison for the way that they've treated minors.
Now, let me ask you this. Maybe you don't know, but this just occurred to me, are schools or teachers, school districts, unions, teachers' unions, are they also in jeopardy? It would, or one of these detransitioners, and I think there's going to be hundreds of them soon, are they going to say, yeah, it was my doctor and it was my therapist, but it was also my teacher. It was also my school district. It was also a person sitting on the school board. I feel like there's a whole lot of people who have some culpability here potentially.
Right. I think the same logic could apply. Now, I'm not an attorney, so some of those arguments get pretty nuanced. But yes, I would assume that school districts and practitioners, educators have legal liability here for hiding information from parents, especially after this ruling. So in that column, I mentioned the case of a Nashville teacher named Eric Rivera, that he had been pulled out of his classroom simply because, get this, he said, I'm forced to read these two books that are pro-gay marriage. I can't in good conscience read them. I'm simply going to have a colleague of mine. We're going to switch classes. He's going to come in, read those books. I'm going to cover his class. And that's a basic, vanilla religious accommodation, right? Happens all over the country.
That kind of stuff happens all the time.
Right. But his school district found out about it, reassigned him to a non-teaching role, pulled him out of his classroom. Well, they got a demand letter from the First Liberty Institute, and just earlier this week, they restored him to his classroom. So that's one victory. We also had a settlement. There was an Indiana teacher named John Kluge who was forced to, he was fired or forced to resign because he wouldn't use transgender names and pronouns. This is way before COVID. It was back in 2017-18. He was represented by ADF. He just won a $650,000 settlement this week against his school district. So you pile that on cases like Jessica Tapia's, right, where last year she won a $360,000 settlement. There's been a few other these, and sort of the message is getting out that schools better not require their teachers to violate their conscience and go along with these policies, or they're going to be on the losing end of one of these settlements. So pretty exciting things that are happening now.
It's just as we thought about that, as a teacher, if you were to cover up, there's another scandal here in LAUSD of essentially the cover up of sexual abuse to the tune of, private settlements that are going on, but it's like $1 billion. It's huge amount of money. But what's happening is a lot of these teachers who get in trouble for this, they're not fired. They're just moved to another school.
Yeah.
To me, there's lawsuits coming for that too. I mean,
yes.
And if you're a teacher and you're not doing that, you must. I think teachers have to believe that they have a certain amount of jeopardy if they have knowledge of this going on and they're not allowed to share it. At what point are you obligated to blow the whistle? That I don't know if you're going to get sued for that, but there needs to be a lot more whistleblowers, and maybe these cases are going to give people the confidence to do that.
That's right. It's always right to do the right thing, right? Even if it costs you temporarily, it's always right to do the right thing. And yes, teachers need to do that. This is when issues like this come up, Scott. I talk about the purpose of our mission at Christian Educators. There's 50 million kids in our nation in public schools, right? And I know lots of our families are taking their kids to homeschool and private school, and those are wonderful options. But as adults, 50 million kids, are we going to abandon those kids? Right? As adults, let's go into the public schools as missional teachers, as ambassadors for Christ, as people who go in there to, at the very least level, not sexually molest our kids, right? And not convince them to get surgical mutilation. That's a pretty low bar. But how much more can we do to influence this generation if we were to take a hold of that opportunity? As you have pointed out, there's a lot of sort of bottom feeder teachers that are populating our classrooms. What if Christians who knew how to taught with excellence and who had God's wisdom and who saw kids with the eyes of Jesus, what if they went into our public schools and loved on those kids and saw them as children of as his kids, right? So that's what we need in this nation more, I think, more than ever.
Yeah, I think that is a excellent point. We talk a lot about homeschool and the need to do that. Private schools, KKLA in Los Angeles, we're offering half-price tuition for if you take your kid out of public school, put them in a Christian school, we'll pay half price, right? That's going on now. You can go to kkla.com. And I urge people to make those decisions because you got to protect your kid. However,
right,
the other side of it is public schools are inevitable. And we cannot, as much as, and I put my kids in private school, as much as that's a priority for me and for my wife and our two boys, we cannot ignore the public schools that are on either side of my kids' private school, where some of their friends go and they come in and out of they play against them in sports teams and other things. These kids are American kids. They're our family. They're our friends. A lot of Christian kids, a lot of kids who would be open to the gospel if they could hear it, a lot of teachers who are in a very difficult situation. We cannot just say, okay, I got my kids out, so now I'm out of the fight. We have to still be a part of it as taxpayers. If you're not convinced just by being a person of faith, but as a taxpayer, you're still in the fight. You're still paying for all of this.
That's right. That's right. There was another victory that came out this week as well that's not so much directly related to schools, although certainly partially related to schools, is that the Health and Human Services Department sent a letter to all 50 states saying that they can't define child abuse as an objection to gender ideology. So Christian parents who don't want to transition their kids, but up to now, they're subject to having the state take their kids away, right?
Yeah.
Well, the HHS is saying, no, states, you can't do that. And if you want this huge amounts of funding, you have to certify to us that your definition of child abuse is reasonable. And so they're kind of holding on to the purse strings. And so we'll see how that develops. But that could be huge if states can no longer take kids away from parents because of their religious beliefs about gender. So that'd be awesome as well.
You're listening to the Pastor Scott Show. My guest is David Schmus. He is the Executive Director for Christian Educators. You can learn more at christianeducators.org. If you'd like to join our conversation or maybe you have a question for David, call us now at 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. David, as we think about it, and we don't want Christians or churches even to disconnect, what are some great ways that churches can support the teachers who are coming to our churches who are in this difficult situation, and even support the public schools down the street from our churches?
Yeah, well, the public school, I think, is the most strategic mission field in our nation. And so churches can simply go to their local school and say, hey, how can we serve? How can we come alongside and build relationship? A lot of public school educators and principals and leaders are a little bit wary, like, oh, are you here to proselytize? Well, hey, let us just come in to serve. Let us just come in to love, and let's build relationships and see what opportunities develop. Also, I would say that churches can come to Christian educators and say, hey, how can we help you equip the teachers in our schools how to walk out their faith legally and with wisdom? We are big believers that Christians are called to go into public schools not to win an argument, but to be a blessing. Obviously, sometimes we have to lawyer up and win those fights. But we try to find win-win solutions. And one of those win-win solutions, I think, is to get those teachers out of unions.
Yeah.
And so, because unions are driving this agenda, they're actively working to really, as I said, sterilize and mutilate kids through these policies. And so, and the average California teacher is spending $1,300 a year to support this agenda. Churches could help their teachers leave those unions. It's not hard. Get out of those unions, come join Christian educators, get their liability insurance, get their legal protections in place from us, from a biblical worldview, for 20% of the cost. That's an 80% discount off their union dues, and give themselves a 1% raise, essentially, and support a ministry that has their heart from a biblical worldview. And we'd love to work with churches to help their teachers in that way.
You can learn more at christianeducators.org, teachers, to find out more about that. I'll give you that out in just a second. I want to take a phone call. Somebody's calling about an issue here, so maybe you can take that call here. Kat in Covina, welcome to the Pastor Scott Show. Hi, Kat, are you there?
Hello.
Hi, Kat, go ahead.
Oh, hi. My name is Pat.
Oh, Pat. Sorry, it says. Sorry,
Yes.
Pat.
Listen, it's okay. Listen, I was just wondering. I'm listening to the radio station now as we speak, but I just wanted to ask if now your guest is from the ACL. What's it called?
No, he's from Christian Educators, christianeducators.org. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. Well, listen, I just got a notice because I work at a local junior high school and was wondering, we've just got a notice that we are supposed to take a training in order to stay on the payroll. And I'm not sure if it's just for teachers or for instructional aides like myself. But I'm just curious. The program and the training is called PRISM. It has something to do with training for the LGBTQ plus community,
Right.
and how to talk to the kids. It's right along the lines of the No Child Left Behind Act that we, the mandated reporter. Training that we have to take.
Yeah, but this is something that's requiring you to. I don't want to run out of time, so this is something that's requiring you to have certain things that you're required to do regarding LGBTQ issues. Correct?
It's a training. It's a training that we have to pass in order to stay.
So what's your question for David? Do you have to do it, or what options do you have?
Yeah, what options do I have, and do I have to do it? Because I know teachers are required to do it.
Yeah. Let me put you on hold, and I'm going to let David answer because I want to make sure we have enough time. What would you tell Pat?
Yeah, Pat, if you are required to take that training, we can help you opt out. So reach out to us at service@christianeducators.org or call us 888-798-1124. And we have a process. We've helped many of our members opt out of the PRISM training and with a religious objection. And these cases that happened this week will now strengthen that religious accommodation request. And so, yes, please reach out to us. We'll be happy to help you get opted out of the PRISM training.
So that's great. I didn't know you could do that. Is that helpful, Pat?
That is really helpful. But can you tell me the name of the program again, or the
Yes.
place?
Yeah, give that information out again, and for Pat and for everybody listening.
Yeah, email us at service@christianeducators.org or call us at 888-798-1124.
All right. Thank you so much. You've been a big help.
Pat, thanks for calling. And that website, again, is christianeducators.org, christianeducators.org. I encourage people to check it out. See, I think that's great advice. I didn't know that you could opt out of that. I didn't know that was possible.
Yeah, we weren't sure either. But what happened was when people got into the PRISM training, you couldn't complete the training unless you agreed with the ideology that was in the training. There were certain parts where you had to click, had to answer certain questions right, and you couldn't go on.
Right.
Well, that translated it from now just a passive training to now I'm having to actually participate in this ideology, and that was the trigger that allows us to get teachers out of it, because now they're having to violate their conscience.
All right, so that's great advice. So if you're a teacher, or you know a teacher in your life, somebody in your church, send them over to christianeducators.org. So much good stuff there to help our teachers and our public school students. We got about 30 seconds. Final thoughts, David?
Yeah, would you just pray for the teachers because California public school teachers, especially, not just in California, but around the nation, are in a spiritual battle. Mm-hmm. And they're going into a hostile environment every day in many cases, and these kids are so desperately needing of God's influence in their lives. These Christian teachers are ambassadors for Christ, they're missionaries, And would you uphold them in prayer, because we need them now more than ever.
Yes, that's great advice. Pray for your teachers. All right, David Schmus, thanks for joining me today on the Pastor Scott Show.
Thank you, Scott, for having me.
All right, it's ChristianEducators.org is the website again, ChristianEducators.org. Hey, when we come back, we're going to talk about the good news in your life. What's good happening in your life? What's something recent that's happened that's really good? Call us now, 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. We'll be back on the Wednesday edition of the Pastor Scott Show. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody. Pastor Scott Show. Go to pastorscottshow.com to connect with us online. All of our social media and our live stream links, podcast, everything is at pastorscottshow.com. Just click on that website. Find our social media. Give us a follow at Pastor Scott Show. On Pastor Scott Show, we talk about issues of the day from a Christian perspective. And you know what? There are so many issues of the day that are hard, especially right now. We've got war. We've got all kinds of anxiety that brings up. But you know what? Life is still going on, and there are still really good things happening in our lives. And right now, I want you to hit me with the good news. 888-528-2557. What's the good news in your life?
Good news. Don't hold it back. A smile, a win, or you're on the right track. Call Pastor Scott. We're ready to cheer. Tell the whole world what they need to hear. Hit me with the good news. Hit me with the good news.
That's right. Our good news segment is, if you've got good news, you must have something good that you want to tell everybody about. And this is important. This is not a brag. This is not something where we're just trying to get you to toot your own horn. This is something important. You know, the Bible actually tells us to share the good news that's happening in our lives with each other. Usually when we talk about good news from a Christian perspective, we're talking about the gospel. And of course, that's the best news. That's the good news. That's what that word means. But the Bible also instructs us to share the good news. Proverbs 15:30 says, "Light in a messenger's eyes brings joy to the heart, and good news gives health to the bones." The reason is that we are to share the good news is so that we can rejoice with those who rejoice, because it also brings health to our bones. Do you have a bunch of anxiety because of the war or because of other things going on in your life or in the news or other things happening? That seems to dominate so much of our thought process. One of the most healthy things that we can do is to not ignore that stuff. It matters. We got to take care of it, but to also pause and share what's good. So what's something good in your life? It doesn't have to be a really big deal. It can be something, it's got to be something recent, something that you can praise God for. It can be something you're looking forward to. Maybe you've got some plans. Maybe you just made your summer vacation plans. Maybe you got somebody coming over. You've got a great family event, something that just even a small victory. What is your good news in your life? 888-528-2557 is the number. 888-528-2557. You can call now with the good news. What's the good news? This is one of my favorite segments because it's positive, and we're not ignoring all the difficult things that are happening. But when we really have a chance to build each other up, and you might not think that your little thing that you're excited about is going to be helpful. Let me tell you, even the smallest things are helpful to so many people. 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. Let's begin with Stacy in Pacoima. Welcome to the Pastor Scott Show, Stacy.
Hi.
Hi, Stacy. Go ahead.
So, I just have a question for you. I wanted to know about animals in heaven. Is there anywhere in the Bible where it says that the animals do go to heaven? Because I know that they say, they cross the Rainbow Bridge and they go there, but is there something in the Bible that says that they're there?
You know what? Let me ask you a question. Do you also have good news? Something happening in your life?
I do.
Okay, so I want you to share that in a second. Maybe it's not bad or good news. It's the Bible doesn't tell us that our animals are in heaven. There's no Rainbow Bridge or any of that's biblical. I hope to see my dogs in heaven that have gone on before me. That would be awesome. But I'll tell you what, whatever happens in heaven, we're not going to be disappointed by that.
Right. Yeah, because they said we had jobs and stuff in heaven, things that we like to do. And I would like to care for animals or be around animals. So I was just wondering.
Yeah, I think because the best evidence that there could be animals in heaven is that God put animals in the Garden of Eden before the fall, before sin. And, so the same reason that we'll probably have work to do is because there was also work before sin. We just won't have the negative consequences of work. Like, we won't hate it. We're going to love it.
Right.
So I don't know that
Yeah,
you're going to
exactly.
see, your exact pet, but I also don't know that you're not. So
Right.
I hope to do that, but whatever happens, we're not gonna miss that. So what's your good news?
Well, because I always, real quick, I always pray to God that when I go to heaven, that I want to ride my horse into heaven.
Well, you know what? You might as well. I don't think it's wrong to pray it. Maybe the Lord will say no, but
That's true.
whatever happens, it's okay. So what's your good news? What's the good news?
Well, my good news is that I had gone through a really tough time with my old job, and I was let go really horribly, and I was suffering through, a lot of depression and stuff, and finding my own job. And someone came into my life that had actually suggested, working for special education kids in the school system, but the school system kind of limits you and stuff to pay and availability at schools and stuff. So. I was praying about it, and God actually has been answering my prayers every step of the way as far as that goes. Like, they offered a test that I could take without college, because I didn't go, and that's never been heard of before. Like, it's unheard of. You know what I mean? That they would offer this test to people without having college units, and all of a sudden, they gave all these opportunities out, and so all these schools have been calling me. So I've been having the opportunity to possibly get my benefits, and I'm starting to feel better and happier in my life, and I feel like God has been answering my prayers in subtle little ways. It's not always perfect, but it's better. You know what I mean?
That's
It's always
really
better.
good news. When you lose your job for whatever reason or however it's done, right? It's never fun. But you know
No.
what? The next thing sometimes is so much better. And it sounds great. Sounds like you may get an opportunity to work with kids who really need your help. And it might be the best thing that happens for you.
Yeah, exactly. And the other job was like trying to say that, I was a racist and I was a bad supervisor, and kind of put my feelings really down about myself. You know what I mean? And I know that I'm not a racist, and I know that I'm not, this, but when people say it to you so horribly and blackball you from a certain area of your life that I've been working in for 16 years, and I helped a lot of people in the union too, it puts you down, you know? But God reconnected me to, there was a black coworker that I had worked for back a long time ago before the union. And when I had done the Bible app, she came on there and friend requested me, and she was like, "You were such a great supervisor. You did these things to me or for me, and I remember I said something to you where you should have fired me, but you didn't." And I didn't remember any of those things, that she had done. I just remembered that she needed help. You know what I mean?
I think God helps
And
us with that when people do mean things to us, especially if we're called names or you're derided in some way. I do think that God brings people back into your life to remind you that that's not who you are.
exactly.
And I think,
Yeah.
Stacy, I got other calls, but that's good news. Would you call us back when you land your job? That's going to be good news. We do this almost every week, the good news segment. Call us back and tell us about your new job. That would be especially good for good news. 888-528-2557 is the number. 888-528-2557. What's the good news? Something good happening in your life. It can be a big deal. It can be a small deal. But what's the good news? Share that with us, because when we share our good news, it lifts up everybody. Deborah in Ontario, welcome to the Pastor Scott Show.
Hi, Pastor Scott. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, what's the good news, Deborah?
Well, I wanted to share that tomorrow I will have 11 years sober, free from alcohol.
That's great.
That's been really exciting, and the Lord's helped me through that. And also, I have a son who was on drugs and homeless for 10 years, and he is now working. He just started his second semester in college, and he got married last weekend.
Wow.
And he's been sober, and it was really rough when he was out homeless on the streets, as I had my other son had terminal cancer, so I was having one of my sons sick on drugs and the other one with cancer. And the Lord took my older son home, but he accepted the Lord before he left,
That's good.
and which was a blessing. And he gave me back my other son. And it's been tough, but I'm just rejoicing lately that he's healed us with, we just keep trusting him and just every day just stay sober, and he's really been blessing our lives.
It's
And
so
I wanted
important.
to share that.
Thank you. That's super good news. 11 years, you said tomorrow. Is that when you said is your
Yep,
anniversary?
11 years tomorrow.
sober. Congratulations.
Mhm.
Your son is
Thank
sober. He was homeless. He's not. He's in school. He's getting married. He's working.
Yeah, he got married last weekend.
He got married last weekend, and
Yeah.
and that is amazing. And I'm so glad that you shared that, because there's people out there right now who are really struggling with where you were maybe 5 years ago, with your son, or maybe 10 or 15 years ago. There is always hope, and people need to hear your story, that you should never give up on your kids, never give up on your sobriety. You can do it, and the Lord is there with you.
You, and I can really testify with that with my son. It was people didn't want to talk to him, gave up on him, but I just kept praying and fasting, and he came back to God. And so it doesn't get better than that.
It doesn't.
So thank you. Thank you for letting me share, sir.
Yeah, Deborah, that's awesome. Thank you for calling the Pastor Scott Show with the good news. Hey, what's the good news happening in your life? 888-528-2557. It can be a really big deal. It can be a small deal. It can be just you had a victory or something that brought a smile to your face recently. Or it can be something really huge like Deborah just shared, that's years of praying and struggling and the Lord is blessing. But what is it that is recent in your life that's the good news? Maybe an anniversary or a new family member, all kinds of things. What's the good news? Share it with us, because it's important. The scriptures tell us that sharing the good news gives health to the bones. It makes people feel better. We are this generation is the most anxious, the most frustrated, having the most difficult time. And the simple thing that we can do to really help each other is share the good news, because everybody shares the bad news. Share the good news. 888-528-2557. 888-528-2557 is the number. We'll be back as the Wednesday edition of the Pastor Scott Show continues. Go to pastorscottshow.com to connect with us online. Phone number again, 888-528-2557. What's the good news? We'll get your calls as soon as we come back in 4 minutes. Welcome back, everybody. Pastor Scott Show. Go to pastorscottshow.com to connect with us online, pastorscottshow.com. You can follow us on social media at Pastor Scott Show on your favorite social media. Hey, you know what time it is? It's time to hit me with the good news. 888-528-2557.
Hit me with the good news. Don't hold it back. A smile, a win, or you're on the right track. Call Pastor Scott. We're ready to cheer. Tell the whole world what they need to hear. Hit me with the good news.
That's right. It's time to share the good news happening in your life. What's good? What's something recent that's gone on? Something that's put a smile on your face? Something you're looking forward to? An answered prayer? Something that has happened recently that you can share with us? We do this because there's so much bad news in the world. We're surrounded by it. We got to talk about it. We got to deal with it when it's in our life. But we also are to share the good news with each other and rejoice with those who rejoice. And the scriptures tell us that it actually helps us. It helps us. Proverbs writer tells us that it gives health to the bones, that is like cold water to a weary soul is good news from a distant land. So what's the good news happening in your life? 888-528-2557. 888-528-2557. Evelyn in Covina, welcome to the Pastor Scott Show.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Evelyn.
Hi, Pastor Scott. How are you?
I'm good. What's the good news, Evelyn?
So I recently got a job as a school nurse for LAUSD, and this was a big answer to prayer because we started fostering, and we're going to adopt our little girl, and I just wanted to be home with her during the summer. So God provided.
That is so great. So you get to work during the school year. Is she old enough, the foster kid, to go to school?
She is. She's 8.
Yeah, so you can work while she's at school and then probably bring her home, right?
Yeah, I get home before she gets out, and I have the summers and breaks off with her.
That's perfect. That's super good news, Evelyn. I'm so grateful for that, and it's going to matter to her life, and you're adopting her.
Amen. Yes, we are.
Amen. Good for you. Good for you. Thank you for sharing that. That is super good news, Evelyn. 888-528-2557. What's the good news? See, doesn't that make you feel good? There's somebody out there who's serving the Lord, who's praying, God, I'm going to adopt this child. Number one, great news. Number two, I want to be home, but I've got to work. That's a problem that we all have here in Southern California, especially because everything costs $1 million. To live. So how do you do that and raise the kids if you can do it? Everybody tries to figure that out. She's found it out. What's the good news happening in your life? 888-528-2557. 888-528-2557. Linnea. Is it Linnea in Chino Hills? Linnea.
Linnea.
Hi, Linnea.
Yeah, Linnea.
Linnea, welcome to the Pastor Scott Show. What's the good news?
Sorry. Well, I came into work on a day that I usually am remote, so not only did my new boss buy me lunch, he told me to go home early, so I'm going to be home before I would normally be knocking off work.
That is excellent news. That's a win-win. You know, you came in, you got a free lunch, and you get to go home early anyway.
Yep.
Where did you go for lunch?
He bought me a pastrami sandwich. I forget the name of the place. It's in Costa Mesa.
Oh, all right. Was it good?
Oh, very good. And I've got a half a sandwich for dinner.
Oh, see, that's even more good news. So your dinner's even taken care of. Isn't that great?
That's right.
And
Yep.
you get to beat some of the traffic. Also good news.
In Southern California, I don't know that that's possible, but yeah.
Right. You're only beating the people who left after you. That's all you're beating.
That's right.
That's probably right.
But it's a win.
It's a win. Linnea, that is all good news. That is all good news. Isn't that the best? You know, if you're working at home, then you go in and maybe you don't want to normally, but hey, the boss buys you a pastrami sandwich and it's your lunch and dinner and tells you to go home. Maybe she'll be coming in more often. Although she's still got to drive in that traffic where so many of you are right now. What's the good news in your life right now? Anything, it can be a simple thing like that. Just something to praise God about. What's the good news? 888-528-2557. 888-528-2557. What's the good news? Rebecca in Covina, welcome to the Pastor Scott Show.
Hi, Pastor Scott. First of all, I want to thank you for your honesty and being impartial in what you share.
Thank you.
And then I wanted to share my good news. My husband, my prodigal son, who had nothing to do with me, who was out in the streets doing everything under the sun. About a month and a half ago, he came to my door, called me, and the Lord said, tell him to come home. And he came home broken, tears, suffering from post-traumatic syndrome.
Yeah.
But you know what? The Lord has restored us. And I would just share with every parent, never give up on your children, no matter how old they are, because I've prayed, people have prayed for years, and the Lord has restored us.
Well, that's wonderful news. That is such good news. And, you know, I really believe, Rebecca, that people who are listening right now, you know, and you're the second person who's been able to share that kind of story. I think there's people listening right now who are ready to give up. And one of the reasons that we share the good news is to remind us not to give up, that the Lord is with us. And thank you, Rebecca, for sharing that. What's the good news happening in your life? Call now, 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. This is why we do this, because I think we get overwhelmed by, we've got a war going on with an uncertain end. We've got the politics and division. We got these primaries. We got all this stuff going on. News generally, if it bleeds, it leads, right? That's what's out there. And we've got to talk about those things. We got to deal with them. But at the same time, there's good news happening in our life. Everybody's got something happening that is, whether it's a big deal or a small deal, a big deal like your prodigal son is coming home, your prodigal child, or just a simple thing like somebody bought you a lunch today. All of that good news, it's good to hear. So call now. We got a couple of moments left. 888-528-2557. 888-528-2557. Got any good news, Jose? Anything happening in Jose world that is super good?
Took an exam the other day and got a good score.
Oh, that's excellent news.
Yeah, got an 84 the first time, and then they give you a second attempt. Got a 92 on the second try.
Ah, good for you. That's an A.
Yeah.
Yeah, good to get an A.
Remember, C's get degrees, though.
That's right. He's get degrees. He's, what do they call a doctor who was the worst in his class and cheated in order to pass? What do they call that guy?
I don't know.
They call him doctor.
That's right.
So you just gotta, you keep in there with those those A's. That really matters. I've always wondered that with like my doctors, and they all put their degrees up on the wall and everything. I guess that's good news that they've got those degrees, but maybe they should put their transcript up there. Like, what did you get though in those classes? Because I'll tell you what, the doctor who cheated to get through, I've had that doctor before, and and you usually don't realize it for a while. You got some doctor, and you're like, oh, he's fine. And then the good news is you realize, my doctor's trying to kill me, and you go get somebody else who's really good. 888-528-2557. We got a couple of you on the line now. What's the good news happening in your life? 888-528-2557. Good news is good news. We started giving my kids a little bit of cash, although it's still sitting in my wallet, for their good grades. And that seems to be working. I don't remember ever getting paid to get my good grades, but it is an incentive to get those A's. We also take it back if they get bad grades, though. Like you pay us at a certain amount. 888-528-2557. John, what's the good news? John in Rancho.
The good news is that I get to go back to Texas.
Oh, yeah? Is this just a trip, or you moving?
No, I moved out of California 8 years ago. So, but then the company I worked for, they put me downtown to build 2 high-rises, and I've been downtown L.A. for 6 years, and I finally get to get out of here, and I don't have to pay that extra $1,000 a paycheck to the state anymore.
Oh, you know what? That is good news.
I take offense at our policies and strategies.
So you're going to save $1,000 per paycheck by going back to Texas?
Yes, and then after that, project's in Florida, and I get to save money there too because they have the same tax brackets as Texas does.
Well, so I'm glad that's good news for you. Now, where are you going though in Texas?
I live in Holly Lake Ranch. That's in between Longview and Tyler, Texas.
All right, do you like it there?
Oh, I love it there. It's the best.
All right.
It's so quiet.
All right, because there's a lot of good things about L.A. Downtown's a little rugged though, and that tax burden, it's a big deal. But
it is. The prices and everything.
Yeah, so we'll miss you, and you'll pay half as much in gas pretty soon.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes.
Well, John, thank you. I'm really glad that's good news for you, and the next job is already in the queue. That's also good news.
Yes, sir.
All right,
yes,
John,
sir.
thank you for doing what you're doing. 888-528-2557. Michelle in Covina. What's the good news, Michelle?
I wanted to share that my son, my 19-year-old, he hasn't been going to church lately, but he did join my husband and I for our prayer night on Monday. So I'm super excited about that.
Wow.
I'm still excited about it. Yes.
Did he do that just kind of on his own? Can I go with you to the prayer night?
My husband asked him. I always ask him, and then my husband asked him, and we don't pull his arm or anything like that. But he willingly came. We didn't have to, drag him. So that's a win to me. That
is a win. Every one of those things is a win. And actually, coming to a prayer meeting is a big deal. That's, I would say, trickier than going to church.
Right. Right.
So maybe the Lord is moving on his heart. And you know what? Seeing a bunch of people come together to pray who are serious about their faith and doing that, that's very impactful. So can I just pray for him real quick? What's his name?
Oh, yes, Brian.
God, I pray for Brian right now, and I pray that you would move in his heart, that he would be aware of your presence and aware of your love for him and your involvement in his life, and maybe going to that prayer meeting, whatever's compelled him to go, Lord, I pray that is you, that you would compel him to give his life fully to you. And I pray for wisdom for Michelle and the whole family. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Michelle, that's great news. Thank you. And call us when you have the next step. It's such good news. So important to hear that. This is why we talk about the good news happening in our life. God is doing stuff all the time in our life. And sometimes we keep it to ourselves. And sometimes, we just feel like people wouldn't be interested. I don't know about you. Actually, I do know about you. I think you're as blessed as I am right now that we heard from so many people who have these great news stories in their own life. The good news, of course, of Jesus Christ is that he died for our sins and he rose again from the dead. The good news is all you got to do is put your faith in him and you will have everlasting life. This is the Pastor Scott Show. Go to PastorScottShow.com to connect with us online, PastorScottShow.com. Follow us on social media while we take a break, and we'll be back in just a couple of moments. Don't go away. Hey, one of the things that's good news for me is it's almost been 2 years since I finally decided to do something about my sleep apnea and the snoring that was coming along with it. I went to go see Dr. Eddie Simon, and he has created a mouthpiece that I wear. It's custom made. It's not something he pulls off the shelf. You go to his office in Los Angeles, and he will sit you in his chair and do a bunch of examinations and tell you whether or not this will work based on the scans of your head and your throat. And it showed this little tiny airway that I had going on. And he said, this is why this is going to work for you. Look what happens when we move your jaw. And so I wear this mouthpiece at night. It's custom made for my mouth. It moves my jaw in the right position, puts my tongue in the right position, and I sleep great. It resolved my sleep apnea. It stopped my snoring, and I feel fantastic, and it's great for my health. I think this can work for you. Call Dr. Eddie Simon at 800-92-SMILE. That's 800-927-6453. Or go online to tmjexpert.com. Dr. Eddie Simon. We'll be right back. Good afternoon, everybody. It is the Pastor Scott Show. Go to PastorScottShow.com to connect with us online. PastorScottShow.com to follow us online. All of our social media podcasts and our live stream links are at PastorScottShow.com. Phone number is 888-528-2557. 888-528-2557. We talk about issues of the day from a Christian perspective. Let's go to clip 2-1.
Iran will immediately use the money that it's receiving in sanctions relief to begin to build up its conventional capabilities. It will establish the most dominant military power in the region outside of the United States, and it will raise the price of us operating in the region. They're going to build anti-access capabilities, rockets capable of destroying our aircraft carriers and ships, continue to build these swift boats that are able to come on us, these fast boats that are able to swarm our naval assets. And they'll make it harder and harder for U.S. troops to be in the region. They'll also work with other terrorist groups in the region to target American servicemen and women. And they may or may not deny that they're involved, but they will target us and raise the price of our presence in the Middle East until they hope to completely pull us out of that region.
That was Senator Marco Rubio, who is now our Secretary of State. That was Senator Rubio in 2015 from the Senate floor. He got up to put a bunch of things he said on the record. He says, I want to put these things on the record for history's sake. And then he proceeded to explain what was going to happen if we did not take the Iran threat seriously, and if we would, in fact, what we were doing back then is giving Iran money. The Obama administration had a different opinion about how to deal with the mullahs over there, and Marco Rubio was fully against that because he understood that they were going to use it not for the humanitarian reasons that they said. They said they would use it to help relieve the sanctions and help build infrastructure and do things for the Iranian people. And the argument against doing that is that, no, they're going to use it to fund the terrorists and to fund these terrorist groups, Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis, and they're going to use it to build bombs and not do anything to help the people, which is, of course, what we know 11 years later. He continued with this, 2-2.
They'll also continue to build long-range missiles, missiles capable of reaching the United States. Those are not affected by this deal, and they'll continue to build them as they've been doing. And then at some point in the near future, when the time is right, they will build a nuclear weapon. And they will do so because at that point they will know that they have become immune, that we will no longer be able to strike their nuclear program because the price of doing so will be too high. This is not just a work of imagination. It exists in the world today. It's called North Korea, where a lunatic possesses dozens of nuclear weapons and a long-range rocket that can already reach the United States. And we cannot do anything about it. An attack on North Korea today would result in an attack on Tokyo, or Seoul, or Guam, or Hawaii, or California. And so the world must now live with a lunatic in possession of nuclear weapons. And this is the goal Iran has as well, to reach a point where they become immune to any sort of credible military threat because the price of a military strike would be too high.
These people are crazy.
So Marco Rubio, 11 years ago, is making the exact same argument he's making for why we went to war today. And the point I want to make is this, and for us maybe to think about this along these lines. You know, the future is not always hard to predict, whether it's national future, whether it is a future for your business or for your church or even in your personal life. that certainly there are unforeseen circumstances that happen. There's tragedies and there are economic collapses and things that you can't control, weather, all right? There's things that happen in your life. However, an interesting thing that's very biblical and very true when you think about it is that in our lives, whether it's our personal life or our business or church or even our country, the future is fairly predictable. What's going to happen? If you want to know where your life is headed, then look what direction you're on. If you want to know where you're going to end up, where are you headed? That's what you should do. And I thought I would take a look at this because I think this speech that he decided, the argument was over, the vote was over, the money was going to Iran. He decided, you know what, we need to put this in the record because we should have known better. And he turns out to be right. Now, everybody on the other side of it, they probably didn't really believe that there was going to be pursuit of nuclear weapon. They wanted to believe maybe the best of these people. And I think that's the tendency for human beings, right? Is we want to believe that people, if we just relieve their economic problem or relieve certain other issues that they have, that they'll give up their evil if they have evil intent. But the thing is you've got to know what is really driving other people. And when you know what drives other people, then you can have a better idea of what they're actually going to do. And this is what Marco Rubio understood 11 years ago, and this is true today, 2-3.
And then they become an established nuclear weapons power. And never in the history of the world has such a regime ever possessed weapons so capable of destruction. Iran is led by a supreme leader who is a radical Shia cleric with an apocalyptic vision of the future. He is not a traditional geopolitical actor who makes decisions on the basis of borders or simply history or because of ambitions. He has an religious apocalyptic vision of the future, one that calls for triggering a conflict between the non-Muslim world and the Muslim world, one that he feels especially obligated to trigger. And he's going to possess nuclear weapons. This is the world that we are on the verge of leaving our children to inherit. And perhaps we ourselves will have to share in it. And so I want to be recorded for history's purposes, if nothing else, to say that those of us who opposed this deal understood where it would lead. And we are making a terrible mistake.
Marco Rubio, 11 years ago, making those comments. And what he says there is, I think, crucial to understanding things now. Now, there's a lot of valid reason to have different opinions over whether or not we should be doing this now or those kinds of things. And that's not what I'm getting into right now. The point he's making is that we're going to have to do it eventually, and if we don't do it, we're going to be facing an Iran that'll be like North Korea, where they have nuclear weapons and they have ballistic missiles that can hit us or anywhere else in the world at some point. And we don't want to be in that situation with North Korea because their motivation is different than even Kim Jong-un, who's crazy, but in a different way. The mullahs, the Ayatollah's opinion, his direction, his belief is apocalyptic, that they want to bring in the final imam according to their interpretation of Islam, and that by destroying Israel or destroying the United States, that will help usher in that period of time, and to sacrifice yourself, knowing full well that we might turn all of that country into glass with our own nuclear weapons in response. It doesn't matter. The point would be to destroy us, and they're going to go and get their 72 virgins or whatever it is they believe. And the motivation is different, where for most people, the motivation is, I don't want to destroy my country or die myself. I like power. I think that the leader of North Korea, I think he likes that role that he gets to play. As crazy as he is, I think he likes that. But he doesn't have a religious notion that says, if I martyr myself for my faith, I am going to be able to have 72 virgins in the afterlife or whatever is there. He just wants to hold on to power and stay chubby. This is the Pastor Scott Show. Go to pastorscottshow.com to connect with us online. Phone number is 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. So my question for you is this. Have you ever had a time in your life, whether it's your personal life or your business or maybe at your church, where you were able to sort of look and say, I think things are headed this direction. And maybe people agreed or disagreed with you, but you said, no, I think if we stay on this present course, we're going to be in a bad place where we don't want to be. So I think we should change course. And you did it. 888-528-2557. Or maybe you regret not doing it because you thought the direction you're going is okay and turned out it wasn't. Sometimes you don't know. right? There's one of the funniest memes going around on the internet right now is there's a picture of George W. Bush, President Bush at the time, and it's got Condoleezza Rice, and it's got Colin Powell, and it's got everybody in the Bush administration after 9/11, 2001, when they went to war in Iraq. It's like a group photo. Hey, look at what we're doing. Don Rumsfeld, if you remember all those characters from that period of time. And the headline of that picture is, if you could go back in time and tell these people something, wouldn't it be amazing if you could go back in time? And remember, George Bush, he called out what he called the axis of evil. It was North Korea, Iraq, and Iran. That was the axis of evil, that all of the evil and terrorism that's happening in the world is coming out of those three countries. He was basically right, but the way we went about it wasn't the right way. I always thought that his plan was probably to take over Iraq, make that simple, and then you looked at the map and we had bases all around Iran like we have now, which is where we're at now. He just didn't expect Iraq to go sideways like it did. Afghanistan too, with all of that. Anyway, the meme that's going on is you go back in time and you see that picture, and because imagine you go back and you tell George Bush and Condoleezza Rice and Colin Powell and that whole crowd that you're not going to bomb Iran, but the person who is the guy who's the host of The Apprentice right now. Like, I think that's remarkable. See, I don't think you could see that coming. I think The Simpsons saw that coming, but I don't think anybody else really saw that coming. So you can't predict everything, right?
All right. I think we've seen enough.
But it was obvious that eventually we're going to war in Iran. Eventually that's going to happen. We've known that probably since 1980, 1979 with that crisis. So when you look at the future of our country, the future of your life or your business or your church, what path are you on? It's a great discipline, because if you can learn that discipline, if you can learn the discipline of asking yourself and being honest with yourself, what is the path that I am on with my family, with my marriage, with my kids, with my job, with my career, whatever it is. Where do I want to be? And is the path I'm on going to really take me there, or is the path I'm on going to take me someplace I don't want to go? Actually, our life is pretty predictable. If you eat too much, you're going to gain weight. Like if I eat burgers every day, which I could do, and I skip the gym every day, which I've done, I'm going to gain weight. If I eat healthy, if I eat fruits and lean meats and vegetables and eat a lot of them and stay away from the sugars and the carbs as much as possible, I will lose weight and maintain my health. I've been on both sides of that equation. It's not hard for me to take a look at my life and go, where am I headed if I don't eat right and if I don't exercise? Well, I'm headed to heart attack. I'm headed to health problems, right? That's the direction I'm headed unless I change those things. Now, those things can happen anyway, but most of the time we get that right. If I decide I'm going to rack up credit card debt with no idea or plan to pay it down, I'm going to find myself buried in credit card debt and paying interest and in a very difficult place, bankruptcy maybe even, or some just endless difficult thing. The same principle scales up. Nations, states, businesses, churches, families, individuals, all of those things, they actually follow predictable paths based on their current heading. And while tragedy can hit anyone, ignoring the trajectory of those things is going to lead you to the wrong place. This is biblical. This is the book of Proverbs. This is the book of Ecclesiastes. This is the wisdom that is there for us to pursue. When you pursue wisdom, you're not trying to be a soothsayer about what this decision might bring. You're trying to have wisdom with making sure that it brings the right thing for you. Have you had this experience? Are you tracking with what I'm saying, where you realized, hey, I'm on the wrong path and I'm going to do something better? 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. Now, I think about it right now because we're in this war that I think is coming one way or the other eventually. I hope that we are successful at ending the nuclear program and ending that regime that's pursuing it for all of those diabolical reasons. It's the religious reason that's the problem. It is, just as Marco Rubio said, it is the apocalyptic visions of the Ayatollah and those people that willingly will sacrifice everybody else. That's why they would invest in Hamas or Houthis or Hezbollah, those groups, and these murderous groups, because it's something else. They're not trying to build a society. They're trying to bring about the end of the world according to their religious point of view. That's not the group of people that you want to have with nuclear weapons. This is the Pastor Scott Show. Go to pastorscottshow.com to connect with us online, pastorscottshow.com. Phone number is 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. You see it in countries. And this is where I think when, we just had several places had elections yesterday, primary elections. Ours isn't until June. But when you think about our state here in California or wherever you might be listening, where is your state headed? Where do you think your state's going to be if whoever it is of their candidates, whichever one actually wins? What direction are you headed? You go all the way back to Rome. Rome starts with discipline and expansion, and they did a lot of bad stuff, right? But the reason Rome became Rome is they were focused on the things that you would need to do to become an empire like they did. But then they got distracted. The bread and circuses, welfare, currency debasement, moral and cultural decay that they just let happen, and they became overstretched, and they were collapsed in a short period of time relative to that period of time. Most nations fall in exactly the same order. That's one of the biggest concerns we should have for our country today, is where are we at in all of those areas with the situation of, are we doing the things that a government ought to do, and letting citizens take care of the things that citizens ought to do? If you go back and read your classical literature, your Plato and Aristotle and that crowd, it's interesting because a lot of the same argument, and I won't go down this road to get too much in the weeds with it, okay? Because
what's wrong with that?
Well, it can get a little dry for some people. But a lot of the arguments that we're having right now, big government, small government, welfare, how much should the state provide, all of those kinds of things, that was 2,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago. You can read about that and how much should the government do, how much should people do. It's, the old words were oikos. I use that word a lot for your ability to share Christ. Who do you share Christ with? Well, it's your oikos. Oikos is a word that is the people in your relational world. You find it all through the New Testament, and it's usually there. It means house or domicile, but it can also mean relational world. In Matthew 5, when Jesus says, you let your light shine to everyone in the house, the word is oikos. He means the people that you know, the people that you do life with. And everybody in that era would have understood that, because that was very, very clear from the people that they read and what they were taught and educated. And the argument is there's oikos, that's what people do together to take care of each other. And then there's the polis, that's the government, where individuals can't do that. Individuals, you and your small group Bible study, that's your oikos. You can't become the police. You need a bunch of different people to do that. You can't run the state or the city in your little group. It's not for that. You need a government for that. Pave roads and do all that stuff. But the argument is, how much should your little group care for each other with respect to their health care or their food or their housing or clothes or shelter, the different things that people need, counseling and all of that, versus how much should the government provide? Well, history's lesson is if the government provides too much of that, then what's happening is the government is doing that, and it might seem right for the time, but they're racking up debt. They're paying less attention to their own borders or their own military, the things that only the government can do. And pretty soon the roads crumble. Here in Los Angeles, didn't they just say that we haven't paved a road really for years? That we put that tar over it and slurry and we blacktop it, but we can't repave it because we've got these crazy laws that says if you actually repave it, then you got to put in the bike lanes and all of this different stuff. We've made it complicated. And then it just stops happening. And we're spending and losing all of this money and homelessness and other stuff. Where is that taking our state? Where does that take our city? If you were to just look, where are we headed in California, in our cities, in maybe your personal life, same way, where are you headed? See, I think the danger is this. The direction we're headed this in the national, federal government, we're headed for this in our state government, our city governments, even our, county governments. If we have the sort of deficits forever, we're just going to always have a deficit, and then we have growing entitlements. We're going to keep on paying people to do all kinds of stuff, or we're not going to investigate the fraud, all that stuff that we're talking about, and we're just growing those entitlements. And interest is compounding the whole time. Where does that head? What's the predictable destination economically for the United States or for the state of California or for the city of LA or San Diego or Santa Barbara, wherever you're at? Where are we going? This isn't partisan, it's just math. And both sides have contributed to this trend. Nations don't collapse overnight. They collapse after they followed the path they're on for decades until they can't stay on it anymore. That's where we're headed. We're headed towards economic collapse. That's a given. It's going to happen next year. It's going to happen in 20 years. I don't know, but I'm certain that the path we're on is not one that is going to lead to good things. In your business, it can be the same way. If you're not paying attention, or even your church, if you're in business, you're not paying attention to AI, for example, you're going to be in a lot of trouble because AI is going to take things over. It's debatable how much it's going to take over. There's doomsdayers, and there's people who think it's going to be great. But if you're ignoring it, you will be in trouble. The same way Blockbuster Video was in trouble when they decided that no one's going to stream their movies. And we don't need to move to the Netflix plan. They had a chance to buy Netflix for like $5, but they decided no, it was a dumb idea. You're going to be like Kodak, who decided that digital photography was not going to take off. That is important. Churches do it too. Sometimes churches maintain programs because they worked really well in 1985, but they don't work in 2026 because the generation is different. I can promise you that Generation Z is a lot different than the millennials, and they're a lot different than Gen X. They're a lot different than the boomers, and they receive information differently, and they process all kinds of things, even spiritually, differently. Older generations struggle a lot more with things like miracles or the supernatural work of God. Younger generations are a lot more open to that. Did you know that? Somebody did a great example of that's why the old Star Trek has Spock, who's logical and who is, everything's got to be factual and emotionless. And the next generation and later Star Treks always have ship counselors, and the robot who's logical wants to have emotions, data, if you follow that kind of stuff. I know I'm nerding out a little bit, but those changes are generational, not just opinions of the writers, but to who they're selling it for. We have to pay attention to those things. So where are we headed? What do you think? Where's your life headed right now? Where have you changed course? What advice would you give people today who might be on the path that you used to be on, and then you got off that path into something better? Call me now, 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. This is the Pastor Scott Show. Go to pastorscottshow.com to follow us online. Phone number is 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. Be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Pastor Scott Show. Go to pastorscottshow.com to connect with us online or social media podcast and live stream. Phone number is 888-528-2557. 888-528-2557 is the number. Hey, if you are looking at the situation in the world today and you're saying, you know what, I got to protect my retirement, and you've been thinking about how to do it with gold and silver, you can. I'm going to tell you about my friends at Sanctuary Metals. Sanctuary Metals is a Christian-owned, faith-based company that will help you secure your future. Sanctuary Metals specializes in helping you move part of your IRA or 401k into physical gold and silver, and not just the paper investments that rise and fall with the stock market. If you've got an old retirement account, maybe from a previous employer, or if you're over 59 and a half, you may be able to roll it over with no taxes and no penalties if you qualify. The best part is it only takes about 15 minutes to get started, and the team will walk you through everything right over the phone. So you don't have to go into their office. They're right here in Southern California, but you don't need to drive anywhere. You can do it on the phone. And you don't even have to do it on the website. You can actually just do it on the phone. They handle the paperwork. They're the custodian of all of it. And your metals are stored safely in IRS-approved vaults. It's very easy, giving you peace of mind. So call Sanctuary Metals today. Phone number is 800-801-9877. That's 800-801-9877. When you call, make sure you tell them that Pastor Scott sent you to see if you qualify for a no-fee-for-life precious metals IRA. Once again, Sanctuary Metals, go to sanctuarymetals.com or give them a call today at 800-801-9877. All right, we are talking about how to predict the future. Let me ask you this question. Where are we headed in California when it comes to homelessness? Are we going to get better, or are we going to stay the same or even get worse? Go to clip number 6.
The cities and counties under Prop 1 this July will now have $1 billion redirected ongoing money. You all say you need ongoing money so that we can make long-term commitments. You're going to get it. So enough excuses. $1 billion to integrate that housing on an annual basis with $6.38 billion of capital. Come on. Let's see these encampments cleaned up, people off the street. Let's see these tax dollars produce the results you deserve. And let's make the kind of difference the judge highlighted here today.
That's Governor Newsom with a brand new program that is going to give California counties $1 billion under Proposition 1 to expand affordable housing and provide vital services for people who are homeless. And you can tell he's frustrated when you listen to his whole speech. He keeps saying no more excuses, and you can kind of hear that frustration. And I think he's right to be frustrated because for years and years and years we have poured more and more money into the homeless situation, and we've hardly made a dent. This program's been slightly more successful than others, but it's billions of dollars, and for the amount of money going into it, it's not really doing the job. And we're having people get arrested, right? So it goes to somebody just got arrested in California, and we need a lot more because I think the money's being stolen. $23 million went to one particular NGO, and that person used it to buy a mansion in Los Angeles, $125,000 Land Rover, and a second home in Greece. So he's not homeless. And I think there's a lot of that going on. And I don't think that's a surprise. So the point that I'm making is I think it's very predictable where these programs are going to go because we've been doing them for a long time. Remember this? This is just 3 years ago from Governor Newsom, number 8.
$500 million, no vision, no plan, no accountability. Fast forward, I know it's not fast enough, but fast forward, $15.3 billion, accountability at the core, and strategies for collaboration and cooperation across a spectrum of supports, the likes of which we have not seen in California's history. I get it. You want to see progress, and you want to see it now. You want to see progress in terms of encampments. You want to see progress in terms of people off the streets. And as the mayor said, you want to see our values represented in that progress. No one's naive. It's not just about sweeping things under the rug or kicking people off the streets and sidewalks and claiming a job well done. That doesn't do justice to the injustice that is perpetuated because our inability to reconcile the larger issues of wealth and income inequality and all its forms and manifestations, the most acute, of course, the issue.
So he's, in 2023, advertising another $15 billion. You know how much money? We've spent $24 billion just in the past 5 fiscal years to address homelessness. According to KTLA, it's hardly made a dent. 2022 and 2023, the number of homeless people who were sheltered got a little bit higher. It went from 42,800 or so to 57,000. But the total number of homeless in that same period of time went from 151,000 to 181,000. So it's getting worse. Why is that? Why do you think that is? See, I think it's very predictable that this is just going to continue to get worse. And it's because the underlying philosophy of how we take care of homeless people is that the government has to do it. The government has to do it with billions of our tax dollars, and it supports programs like Housing First. I know some of you support that, but in 10 years, has Housing First made a big difference? You can pull some people out and got a house, but Housing First is the idea that says we're not going to address the mental health, we're not going to address a whole lot of stuff, we just want to give people a house. And yet we're spending all of this money to build houses that hardly ever get built. We've got another contractor up in Westlake or somewhere who got arrested for taking all that money. That guy was paying his own American Express card with $2 million a month or so on that card, allegedly, just for his own stuff. How do you even rack up that much money on your American Express? What do you buy for all of that? Well, if it's not your money, I bet you could figure that out in a hurry. And that's what he's doing. We know this. So where is it going? Where is homelessness going in California? Is it going to get better? What path are we on? What do you think? 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. This is Governor Newsom starting with his comments on homelessness, going all the way back to when he became the mayor of San Francisco, back before San Francisco had a map where you could track where the human feces was all over the town. Clip 9.
What we call a 10-year plan to end chronic homelessness in San Francisco.
How are you going to solve homelessness? What are you going to do as a new mayor? And I say, well, what are you going to do?
Focus on a housing first model, direct access to housing, shelter solve sleep, housing with wraparound and support services, solve homelessness. Homelessness absolutely can be solved.
Laid out a detailed homeless strategy. There's been no intentionality on homelessness in the state for decades. It's not been a focus. I don't think we can solve homelessness. I know we can solve homelessness. We will reduce street homelessness quickly and humanely through emergency action. The highest investment the state's ever made is $1 billion on homelessness. We are poised to pass a budget in the next few hours that will provide $12 billion of investments. I can literally quantify 58,000 people that we got off the streets last year, and none of you would believe it. The state has not made progress in the last 2 decades as it relates to homelessness. Why? We're not interested in funding failure. We're not interested in failing more efficiently when it comes to the issue of homelessness and the crisis on the street.
So now we're adding more and more billions, and it's not getting better. You can hear that frustration that he's got now. But see, he's had the same thing. But why? I think it's because we have been on a particular path, and we're staying on that path, even though that path is obviously taking us to destruction. And that path is being built by philosophies of how to deal with homeless people. This is behind all of that whole thing that you just heard the governor say. This is his opinion about, say, sobriety and helping homeless people get sober off drugs or off alcohol.
Clean and sober is one of the biggest damn mistakes this country's ever made. I know it's a hold-your-hand idealistic point of view that somehow magically, I mean, God bless some of you. If you're like me, I've been known to have a glass of wine at night watching some of the nightly news. We all need to self-medicate periodically.
I don't care how many billions you put at homelessness. If that is your attitude about how to help people who are homeless, it's not going to get better. You're on the wrong path. See what I mean by the path we're on? The path we are on is not to help homeless people. It's predictable. It is not being a soothsayer, not having special abilities. You don't get to open up a tarot shop or anything. It is, hey, this doesn't work. Why do we keep doing it the same way? And why do we keep voting for people who want to do it that way? Why do we keep not voting at all and then just complaining about it? 888-528-2557. Let me get to your calls here. Chris in Whittier, welcome to the Pastor Scott Show.
Hey, Pastor Scott.
Hi, Chris.
This is such a tough nut, and I give you great kudos for even bringing the issue up. The issue of homelessness and why it will never go away is because at its core, the people that we have put in charge, we have voted and selected to be in that office, to handle all those billions of dollars, they don't really want it to go away because homelessness is a gigantic cash cow, a gigantic political leverage cow. It serves their purpose to keep it going. If it all went away, they would kind of put themselves out of their own job.
Do you think that we know that? I mean, California voters, regardless of your party, do you think that we know that?
I don't think so. Everything kind of rolls back to the fundamental way an individual person assesses who's the person it should vote for. The selections are almost the same. I mean, there might be one that is slightly incrementally better than another. And so every once in a while you have a really radically different selection available. And when you are brave enough to make that selection, things get done. I cite that. The great poster child for that right now is President Trump. Half of America hates him, just hates him with the fires of hell. But he's getting things done. And whether you appreciate his personal way of being, no president has been so productive in getting things done since going all the way back to Teddy Roosevelt.
And when it comes to our homeless situation here, I wonder if people understand that the way we vote actually is connected to what's happening over and over and over again. That it's the philosophy more than even the person behind it.
Right. How can it not be connected? We have a generation of people that have kind of grown up through the education system, that have had their indoctrination, and they have this worldview that.
I'm almost out of time, Chris. Chris, I'm almost out of time. But it's the same worldview that Governor Newsom just shared, that we don't need to make people sober. See, I think if we are not helping people get sober, if that's not a value for us, we're never going to solve this problem, ever. That's the path that we're on. Lydia, Sam, Steve, others will get your calls when the Pastor Scott Show comes back. Plus, we're going to be giving away tickets to our ladies' event called And Equipped. We'll tell you more when we come back on the Wednesday edition. Stay tuned. Scott. Welcome back, everybody. Pastor Scott Show. Go to pastorscottshow.com to connect with us online. Our phone number is 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. I will get to your calls in just a moment, but first... We are giving away tickets to Called and Equipped. It is a soul care gathering for women serving in their church. It's Thursday, March 19th, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. You can buy your tickets right now at kkla.com. Ladies, this is for any lady, any woman who is serving in any capacity at your church, whether you're on staff or whether you have a role that you created for yourself because you happen to pray for people, but you're invested in your church. Whatever your role is, this is for you. We want to be able to serve you and bless you and encourage you in the ministry that God has given you at your church. It's Thursday, March 19th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Our keynote speaker is Becky Brown from New Life Live, and Amberly Neese is the comedian who's there. There are many other speakers. You can learn more at kkla.com. Just click the Called and Equipped banner. So we have a special phone number that is how we're going to give away tickets. This is only for the ticket giveaway. So this is not the number for our show. This is not something else to call. This is just for text. And we want you to text the word CALLED, C-A-L-L-E-D. Text the word CALLED to this number, 866-347-4959. 866-347-4959. We're going to give free tickets to the ninth texter. The ninth texter at 866-347-4959. You can text right now, 866-347-4959. Text the word CALLED to that number, and texter number 9. You get free tickets to Called and Equipped. Everybody else, you can go to Called and Equipped. You can get your tickets online at kkla.com. Just click on the Called and Equipped banner. That text number again is 866-347-4959. Text the word CALLED right now, and texter number 9 will get the free tickets. All right, Pastor Scott Show, the number for our show to call and join in the conversation about homelessness and the trajectory that it's on is 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. Lydia in L.A., welcome to the Pastor Scott Show.
Scott, how are you?
I'm good, Lydia. How are you?
Good. I'm good, thanks. The homelessness situation. Very interesting that since the Olympics are scheduled to be here in 2028, that it seems like some more people might be trying to do some more things. There's just so many layers to this.
Yeah. My question for now is, where is it headed? Like, I would want to know for the Olympics coming up, are we going to actually help more people or just move them out of everybody's vision?
Right. Or load them up on buses and just
take them somewhere else, right?
Which happened where I live. It was like, whoa, here you go, And, but, I do feel for the people. There are some people who legitimately, they want to get off the streets. They're trying. There's some people who are pimped out.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing with, people being sober. As much as people try, there are some people who are not willing.
Right.
And there's some people who, even if they might, they still have the people who come around and say, oh, I'm going to beat you up. Here's some drugs and alcohol. Here you go. And we're gonna beat you if you don't get a certain amount of money for us. I mean,
there's all kinds of organized crime, but in the grand scheme of things, with the things that are being done and proposed, do we have any reason to believe that this crisis is going to get better or worse?
I think there's the potential for it to get better, but it really means people actually doing what they say and making sure that funds are going to legitimate corporations.
Some of these corporations hand out, the philosophy is called harm reduction, so they're the ones out in Santa Monica, for example, handing out all the drug paraphernalia you need to take drugs, clean needles and all that stuff. That's where some of that money goes. Is that working, or is that just enable people to remain homeless?
It enables people, just personally, it seems like it enables people to remain homeless.
Yeah. See, Lydia, I want to go to some other callers, but I appreciate your call, 888-528-2557. My question is if we don't change any of that, if we go with the same philosophy that we're not trying to help people get sober for the most part, that's, as the governor calls it, the stupidest idea we've ever had, clean and sober, is what he says.
Clean and sober is one of the biggest damn mistakes this country's ever made. I know it's
if that's the attitude we have, housing first, giving money to all these companies, but not trusting, for example, the gospel missions in our towns to actually do the work, who are quite successful with a lot less money. Are we going to see an improvement, or is it going to stay the same? See, I think it stays the same or gets worse. What do you think? 888-528-2557. Sam in Simi Valley, welcome to the Pastor Scott Show.
Hey, Pastor Scott. Yeah, you pretty much said half of what I was about to mention. Is it's first there's enabling, but see, there has to be enabling with love, and the love is like you said with the churches that come, and even some churches they just provide the housing, the care, and a lot of churches don't follow through with them. Don't put them in programs. Don't say let's do this counseling. Don't follow up. And I'm sure that if there's for sure all the money that's going out there to all these unsaved corporations and stuff like that, they don't care if there's any kind of follow. No, nobody really wants to get down and dirty with any of these people, unless it's a gift of God or whatever. But it doesn't matter. That's the point. You need to get down. If anything's going to happen in the future or change, it's more people need to care and get in there and get their hands dirty and help these people one-on-one and say, you know what, you can be free of this. You know what, I can walk alongside you or whatever. But there's unfortunately the Bible says, but it's obviously talking about salvation. But that it says the harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few. And it's the same thing with the homeless situation. There's really hardly any people that are getting out there in the dirt and down in the dirty and willing to smell a homeless person, willing to put up with certain things. And the other side to that is that, because I was asked a question in a meeting recently, and they said, Sam, well, what is it going to take for the homeless people to really change? I says, I was homeless at one time, and what it's going to take for every single homeless person is they got to be sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah.
They got to be ready.
I mean, there's certainly amount of choice, right? Some are just going to refuse. But we're spending, the issue is, and I appreciate your call, Sam, and that we're spending billions of dollars. And he's right, we need more people, but we need more people who are doing the right thing. And the spending of billions of dollars, we could pay a lot of people. We could pay counselors. We could hire a lot of people full time. However, if what they're going to do is they're going to just hand out the drug paraphernalia and say it's your right to go get stoned, and we're going to make sure that the Narcan is available to shoot up your nose in case you overdose, and we'll just keep shooting you up every time we find you. That's the path we're on now. The point I'm making is we heard Governor Newsom over more than 10 years talking about his plans for solving homelessness, beginning as when he was the mayor of San Francisco, where it just got worse. And now where he's been governor for going on 8 years, and it's just gotten worse. And I think that this is something that's true. It's getting worse because we're on a path that is taking us to a place where it gets worse. And we refuse to get off that path. Instead, we just keep putting more gas in the tank in the form of more taxpayer money that is being stolen, that is being wasted, that is not getting addressed in the right place, even where it is being used correctly. And this is a lesson, I think, for all of us to understand, is that actually the future is quite predictable. I would say if you predict where the homelessness is going in California, it's not going to get better unless we change course. 888-528-2557. Chris and Fillmore, welcome to the Pastor Scott Show.
Thank you, Pastor Scott. Hey, I heard you talking about the Olympics coming in town on 28th. There is no way that the L.A. can clean up the area in 2 years or less.
Maybe we'll ship everybody out to Fillmore.
Thanks, but no thanks.
It's nice in Fillmore.
Hey, I need you to correct you. It's not Governor Newsom. It's Governor Newscomb or Newsom.
Yeah, it could be President Newsom. As the direction that things are going.
Don't even go there. Lord, come quickly.
Well, you know what? I think. Thanks for calling, Chris. When we're talking about where are things headed, I don't think he's going to be president, probably, even though he is the front runner. By the way, it's way too early for all that. But the lesson here is this: for 10 years, he's been talking about homelessness. The governor is understandably frustrated right now with how it's not getting much better, and he's offering more and more money, but he hasn't changed his philosophy. He doesn't change the housing first. He doesn't change the approach to it. There's no accountability. The point is, it's not getting better if we don't change course, if we stay in the same path. And everything in our life, that's how it works. Our lives are very predictable, actually. Our lives are predictable. Our state government, where we're headed as a state or a city is predictable. Where we're headed as a country is fairly predictable. Now, there are things we can't control. There are tragedies, there's disease, there's sickness, there's things that we can't control, right, that affects all of our lives. But generally speaking, our lives are predictable. If we eat a certain way, there's going to be a certain result. If we exercise, there'll be a certain result. If we invest in homelessness in a way that leads to sobriety and teaching and even the gospel, we're going to have a better result than a system that hires a bunch of contractors to spend millions of dollars on single homes for single people. They're going to steal the money. If there's no accountability, it's very predictable that people are going to steal the money. And that's where we're headed. So my encouragement for you is think about where your life is headed. Whatever your big deal in your life is, ask yourself, where do you want to be? And then take a look at the path you're on and say, am I headed in the right direction, or do I need to change course? Where are you actually headed? And the encouragement is you can change course. And do that today. Start by following Jesus. Hey, if you are texting us for the free tickets, check your text. We need the winner to claim the tickets. So go check your text and text us back with all of that. This is the Pastor Scott Show. We'll be back tomorrow live from 3 to 5. Go to PastorScottShow.com, PastorScottShow.com. See you tomorrow. Good night.